In the verdant embrace of sprawling hills and whispering winds, the village of Everspring lay cradled, untouched by the frenzied pulse of distant cities. Here, the sun cast a golden glow on thatched roofs and cobblestone paths, each morning unfurling like a well-loved scroll filled with familiar tales. Elara, with her vivid auburn hair and eyes as deep and dark as the forest's secrets, navigated the winding village paths with ease that belied her restless spirit. Her days were filled with the clang and clatter of the blacksmith's forge, where she assisted her father, a man whose reputation as a craftsman was as solid as the anvils he worked on. Yet, amidst the sparks and flames, her mind often wandered to lands that lay beyond the rolling mists and shadowed woods that bordered Everspring. On this particular morning, a peculiar tension hovered in the air, as if the village itself held its breath. Elara felt it, a subtle shift in the rhythm of her world as she approached the market square. The villagers milled about, their voices a blend of laughter and haggling, yet beneath their merry chatter, a current of unease stirred. As she passed by the ancient well at the heart of the square, old Mara, the herb seller, caught her arm with a gnarled hand. "Elara, child, have ye heard the whispers? They say the earth beneath the old groves stirred last night, as if awoken from a deep slumber." Elara arched an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "Whispers, Mara? In Everspring, every sigh of the wind becomes a tale by dusk." The old woman chuckled, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "True enough, but these are no ordinary whispers. They speak of shadows lengthening, of nights growing eager. Mark my words, change is coming to Everspring, whether we will it or no." Thanking Mara with a smile, Elara continued on her way, her thoughts ablaze. The idea of change intrigued her, teased at her adventurous spirit. As the market's noise faded behind her, she allowed herself a moment to entertain the fantasies that so often beckoned her, adventures wrought with peril and discovery, a life beyond the forge and anvil. Her reverie broke as she reached the outskirts of the village, where the path forked towards the dense expanse of the whispering woods. Today, however, she was not bound for the woods but to her father's workshop, a sturdy building filled with the scent of iron and sweat. Inside, her father, Cedric, labored over a new plow blade, his hammer singing against the metal. The rhythm was hypnotic, comforting in its familiarity. Yet, as Elara donned her leather apron and stoked the fire, her mind replayed Mara's words. Shadows lengthening, nights growing eager. "Elara, mind the bellows! They won't pump themselves." Her father's voice cut through her thoughts, bringing a sheepish grin to her face. "Yes, father," she replied, her hands moving with practiced skill. As she worked, her gaze drifted to a corner of the workshop, to an old wooden chest long untouched. Something about the chest called to her today, an inexplicable pull that tugged at the edges of her attention. When the day's work slowed, curiosity overcame her. Elara approached the chest, the wood cool and smooth under her fingers. With a cautious glance towards her father, now engrossed in his crafting, she lifted the lid. Beneath a layer of old cloth and dust, something gleamed faintly. Her heart quickened as she reached in, drawing out an amulet of intricate design, its center stone pulsing with a light that seemed to breathe. The metal was neither gold nor silver, but something older, heavier, with symbols etched deep into its surface. As she held it, the air around her seemed to thrum, a silent melody only she could feel. "What secrets do you hold?" she whispered, more to herself than to the amulet. Elara's discovery marked the beginning of something beyond her understanding, a path unfolding with each heartbeat, each breath of the ancient woods that watched over her village. Today, the whispers of Everspring spoke true, and for Elara, the tales of old were about to become her reality. As the last of the day's sunlight filtered through the windows of the forge, casting long shadows across the stone floor, Elara held the amulet aloft, watching as it captured the dying light. The glow within the gem grew stronger, pulsing rhythmically, like the heartbeat of some ancient creature. Her father remained oblivious, lost in the rhythmic dance of hammer and anvil. Elara, however, was caught in a spell of her own making, her eyes reflecting the mysterious luminescence of the amulet. Could this be magic? She wondered silently, a thrill of excitement weaving through her doubts. In Everspring, magic was a thing of legends, spoken of in hushed tones and seen as both a blessing and a harbinger of doom. As night draped its velvet cloak over the village, Elara decided she needed answers. She wrapped the amulet in a piece of soft leather and tucked it into her satchel. Her first stop was the village elder, Old Tom, a man whose knowledge of lore and ancient tales surpassed anyone else in Everspring. Navigating the familiar, cobblestone streets under the cloak of night, Elara felt a sense of purpose swelling within her. The houses around her stood silent, the only sound her soft footsteps and the distant call of a nightjar. Reaching Tom's modest house near the village square, she knocked softly, her heart beating in tandem with each thud against the old oak door. The door creaked open, revealing Tom, his face etched with lines of wisdom and years of toil. "Elara? What brings you to my hearth at this late hour?" he asked, his voice a blend of surprise and concern. "I found something, Tom. Something unusual," Elara replied, stepping into the warmth of his home, filled with the scent of pine and a faint trace of lavender. She drew out the amulet, and as the elder's eyes fell upon it, his usual stoic expression faltered. "Mercy and stars," he murmured, taking a cautious step back. "Where did you find this, child?" "In the forge, hidden away in an old chest." "What is it, Tom? Why does it glow so?" Tom motioned for her to sit by the fire, his old joints creaking as he fetched 2 cups of herbal tea. "That, my dear, is no ordinary trinket. It's known as the Heartstone, at least in the tales my grandmother told me. It was said to be imbued with the essence of the old gods, lost in the annals of time and meant to be forgotten." Elara sipped her tea, the warmth doing little to quell the chill of realization creeping up her spine. "Why would such a thing be hidden in Everspring? And why now?" Tom's eyes were grave as he stared into the flames. "Legends speak of times when the world is in need of balance. The Heartstone will awaken. It seems it has chosen you, or perhaps it is simply fate's design. But what am I to do with it?" Elara's voice was a whisper, heavy with the weight of a destiny suddenly thrust upon her. "You must learn its purpose, child. For that, you will need to consult the Book of Eldrin, said to contain knowledge of all magical things. But be warned, knowledge such as this can be a burden as much as a gift." Elara nodded, her resolve hardening. "I will go to the great library in Cresthaven. If answers lie within this Book of Eldrin, then I shall find them." Tom placed a gnarled hand on her shoulder, offering a smile that mingled pride with sorrow. "Be careful, Elara. Powers such as these are sought by many, not all of whom wish to use them for good." With a new purpose, Elara left Tom's house, the amulet securely hidden within her satchel. The night seemed darker now, the shadows deeper, and the path ahead fraught with uncertainty. Yet, with each step, her determination grew, fueled by the thought of untold secrets waiting to be uncovered, and perhaps, a chance to prove her worth far beyond the anvils and hammers of her past life. As she walked back through the silent village, the whispers of the wind seemed to echo with the possibilities of what lay ahead, whispering of adventures and dangers alike. The world had opened beneath her feet, and Elara stepped forward, ready to meet whatever came her way. Morning dawned on Everspring with a deceptive calm, painting the village with hues of amber and rose. Yet, as Elara stepped out, the Heartstone hidden securely beneath her cloak, the air held a crispness that hinted at impending change. The decision to venture to Cresthaven weighed on her mind like the cold iron of her father's forge, an undeniable presence, heavy and demanding. As she passed the rows of cottages wreathed in the gentle smoke of morning fires, whispers followed her like an insidious shadow. Not the whispers of gossiping neighbors, nor the soft murmurs of lovers concealed by dawn's early light, but a whisper of something else, something ancient. Elara's heart raced as she spotted figures at the edge of the village, shrouded in the mist that rose off the dewy grass. They were cloaked in darkness, their features obscured, and their presence unnatural. These were not mere travelers. They radiated a cold intent that seemed to seep into the very soil. "Who goes there?" Elara called out, her voice firmer than she felt. Her hand rested on the satchel at her side, reassured by the weight of the heartstone. The figures remained silent, unmoving, as if her words were but leaves in a breeze. Elara squared her shoulders, aware of every villager's eye now upon her, watching this strange tableau unfold. She knew she could not show fear, not here, not in front of her own people. With a deep breath, she stepped closer, her eyes straining to pierce the fog. "I am Elara, daughter of Cedric the blacksmith. You stand on the lands of Everspring. State your purpose." One figure stepped forward, the morning light revealing a glint of metal beneath his cloak. "We seek the Heartstone," he said, his voice a rasp of leaves dragging across stone. "Surrender it, and you shall remain unharmed." Elara's thoughts whirled. How did they know of the amulet? Had her discovery already drawn the attention of forces beyond her understanding? "The Heartstone is not here," she lied, her voice steady. "You are mistaken." The man's laugh was low and humorless. "Do not test us, girl. We will have what belongs to Morkant, one way or another." Morkant. The name echoed in her mind like a dark omen. Tom had mentioned no names, but the threat was clear. Elara knew then that her journey to Cresthaven was not just a quest for knowledge. It was a race against forces dark and powerful. "We shall see," she responded, her gaze not leaving the man's. With a swift motion, she turned and walked back towards her father's forge, her mind racing. Once inside, she barricaded the door and sank against it, her breaths shallow and rapid. "What have I unearthed?" she whispered to herself, her fingers clutching the fabric over the amulet. "And what will it cost me in my village?" Her father's voice broke her reverie. "Elara? What troubles you?" Cedric stood at the entrance to the back room, his brow creased with concern. Elara stood, her resolve returning. "Father, there are men outside. They threaten Everspring for something I've found. I must leave for Cresthaven today. I must seek answers before these shadows consume us all." Cedric's face hardened, the lines of worry giving way to determination. "Then we must prepare you. No daughter of mine will face such dangers unarmed." The rest of the morning was a blur of activity. Cedric forged a small, sturdy dagger, simple but deadly. Elara packed supplies, her movements automatic, driven by a need to protect her home. By the time the sun reached its zenith, she was ready. With a final, tight embrace, Cedric whispered in her ear, "Be strong, my heart. Trust in the steel you carry, and the strength you hold within." As Elara stepped beyond the boundaries of Everspring, the weight of her father's words anchored her. She was no longer just a blacksmith's daughter. She was a keeper of powerful secrets, a defender of her people, and a seeker of ancient truths. The path to Cresthaven stretched before her, fraught with danger, but Elara walked on, the Heartstone warm against her skin, a silent ally in the shadows. The road to Cresthaven wound through the dense canopy of the Whispering Woods, where the trees stood as silent sentinels, their gnarled branches intertwined with secrets of old. Elara's steps were swift and silent, her senses heightened by the wild chorus of the forest. Each rustle of leaves and distant howl melded into a tapestry of natural sounds that she had learned to respect but had seldom feared, until now. As the sun dipped behind the trees, casting elongated shadows that danced around her, Elara's thoughts were a whirlwind of apprehension and resolve. Who truly seeks the Heartstone, and why? She mused, her grip tightening on the strap of her satchel. The amulet's presence was a comforting weight against her side, its warmth seeping through the fabric, a constant reminder of the power it held and the danger it invited. A sudden rustling to her left caused Elara to halt, her hand inching towards the dagger Cedric had forged. Her eyes scanned the underbrush, searching for the source of the disturbance. A fox, its coat a vibrant flame against the undergrowth, emerged and paused, its gaze meeting hers with a curious intelligence. "Are you a spy for your masters?" she whispered half-jokingly to the creature, which tilted its head as if considering her words before bounding away into the thickening shadows. "Perhaps all of nature conspires in this mystery," Elara thought, allowing herself a brief smile as she resumed her journey. As night began to envelop the woods, Elara found a small clearing near a brook, its waters murmuring softly under the moon's silver gaze. Here, she decided to rest, her back against a sturdy oak. She unpacked a small portion of bread and cheese, her appetite meager as images of the dark-clad figures haunted her thoughts. "What power does the Heartstone truly hold to draw such malevolence?" she pondered, her mind racing with the tales Tom had told and the threats whispered by the wind. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden chill that swept through the clearing, more than the usual bite of night air. The brook's gentle murmur turned into a harsh whisper, as if the water itself spoke in urgent tones. Elara's hand instinctively clutched the amulet through the fabric of her satchel, seeking its warmth but finding none. The stone had grown cold as ice. Rising to her feet, Elara scanned the darkness, her eyes adjusting to the limited light. A figure emerged from the shadows on the opposite side of the brook, its presence commanding yet ethereal. "Who goes there?" Elara called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a woman cloaked in robes that shimmered with a faint light. "Do not fear, child of Everspring." The woman's voice was like the wind itself, both gentle and foreboding. "I am Erin, guardian of these woods. You carry a burden too great for one so young." Elara's skepticism mingled with wonder. "You know of the Heartstone?" Erin nodded, her gaze piercing. "I have watched over it through the ages, waiting for the one who could unlock its true power. It is not a weapon, but a key to restoring balance where darkness seeks to reign." "Why me?" Elara asked, her doubts surfacing despite the calm assurance of the guardian. "Destiny chooses its own agents, not for their strength but for their potential to grow," Erin replied, stepping closer. "You must reach Cresthaven, but be wary. The path is fraught with peril, and those who seek the Heartstone will stop at nothing to claim its power." With a wave of her hand, Erin conjured a small orb of light that hovered in the air between them. "Take this. It will guide you safely through the woods and ward off lesser evils. But remember, the greatest challenges will test not your might, but your heart." Grasping the orb, Elara felt a surge of warmth flood through her, emboldening her spirit. "I will not falter," she vowed, her resolve hardening like the steel of her father's forge. As Erin faded back into the shadows, her final words lingered in the air. "Trust in the light, even when surrounded by darkness." With the guardian's orb leading her way, Elara continued through the whispering woods, each step taking her deeper into the heart of mysteries old and new, her journey lit not only by the orb's glow but by a newfound determination to fulfill her destiny, no matter the cost. As the canopy of the whispering woods thickened, the orb of light from Erin glowed brighter, casting an ethereal luminescence that seemed to forge a path just for Elara. The forest around her felt alive with a deep, resonant energy, a palpable reminder that she walked on ancient lands steeped in magic and mystery. Night fell like a curtain, and the orb's light became her solitary guide through the darkness. Elara's thoughts drifted to the Heartstone, its secrets, and the cryptic words of the guardian. "A key to restoring balance," Erin had said. The concept weighed heavily on Elara's mind, mixing with the unsettling knowledge of those who hunted her for this very power. "What balance must be restored, and at what cost?" she mused. Her contemplations were suddenly shattered by a piercing scream, a sound so anguished and chilling that it cut through the forest's usual symphony of nocturnal whispers. Elara froze, the orb hovering slightly ahead as if hesitant to proceed. Her hand found the hilt of her dagger, the metal cold and reassuring against her palm. "Courage, Elara!" she murmured to herself, her father's words echoing in her mind as she steeled herself to move towards the source of the scream. Pushing through a dense thicket, Alara emerged into another clearing, much like the one where she had encountered Aaron, but this time, the scene was far grimmer. A figure lay crumpled on the ground, his cloak torn and his breast ragged. As Alara approached the figure, a young man clutched at her, his eyes wide with terror. "They are coming for the stone," he gasped, blood staining his lips. "You must protect it." Before she could respond, a shadow swept across the clearing, fast and silent. Alara spun, just in time to see a cloaked figure retreating into the darkness. Her heart pounded fiercely, her thoughts a whirlwind of fear and resolve. She turned back to the injured man, pressing her hand against his wound in a futile attempt to stem the bleeding. "Who are they? Who seeks the Heartstone?" she asked urgently. The man's eyes flickered with a fading light. "Morkant, his followers, darkness must not prevail." With those final words, he exhaled a shuddering breath and grew still. Alara felt a surge of grief and anger. She had never met this stranger, yet his last moments were spent warning her, a debt of blood and mystery binding her to his fate. She gently closed his eyes, whispering a vow. "I will protect it. Your warning will not go unheeded." Rising, Alara scanned the forest, the orb's light casting stark shadows that seemed to move with malevolent intent. "Morkant," she whispered, the name of venom on her lips. She remembered the dark figures in Everspring, their threatening aura now given a name and a purpose. Her resolve hardened. She would reach Cresthaven, but she would also need to be wary at every step. As she continued her journey, the woods seemed to close in around her, and the orb's light dimmed as if in response to an unseen presence. That night, Alara made no camp but walked tirelessly, driven by a newfound urgency. In the deepest hours of the night, when the stars veiled their light and the world seemed suspended in time, Alara's mind drifted despite her vigilance. It was then that the Heartstone's power stirred within her satchel, pulsing with a heat that drew her hand to it. Closing her eyes, she felt the stone's energy seep into her veins, visions flashing behind her lids, visions of battles fought long ago, of the stone wielded by figures cloaked in light and shadow. The vision shifted, and Alara saw Morkant, his face twisted in rage as he battled against a luminous figure. The Heartstone was there, at the heart of the conflict, its power overwhelming, tipping the scales. As the vision faded, Alara was left with an echo of the Guardian's words. "Trust in the light, even when surrounded by darkness." With dawn breaking, the visions dissipated like mist, and Alara shook off the remnants of the dream. The orb's light strengthened with the morning's arrival, a symbol of hope. Alara set forth with renewed determination, the Heartstone not just a burden now, but a beacon guiding her towards her destiny, to unlock its mysteries and thwart the darkness that sought to claim it. The landscape transformed as Alara pressed on. The dense, whispering woods gave way to rolling hills dotted with the early blooms of wildflowers. The sky, a vast canvas, shifted from the dusky hues of dawn to a clear azure. The orb of light from Aaron now seemed less like a beacon in the dark and more a companion illuminating her path under the sun. Alara's thoughts, however, remained shadowed by the ominous visions of the night. The vivid images of battle, Morkant's wrathful face, and the overwhelming power of the Heartstone replayed in her mind like a haunting melody. "What am I walking into?" she pondered, her fingers absently tracing the lines of the stone through the fabric of her satchel. As the sun climbed higher, Alara spotted a small village nestled in the valley ahead. The need for supplies, and perhaps a brief respite from her solitary journey, drew her down the winding path towards it. The village, unlike Everspring, buzzed with a quiet activity, its people cautious but not unwelcoming. In the central square, Alara approached an old woman selling herbs and dried goods, her table a mosaic of colors and scents. "Good morrow," Alara greeted, her eyes scanning the wares. "Morrow indeed, traveler," the woman replied, eyeing Alara's cloak and the orb floating silently beside her. "What brings you to our humble roads?" "Travel," Alara said simply, purchasing some dried jerky and bread. I seek passage to Cresthaven. The woman leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. Be wary, child. The roads are not kind these days. Dark swords travel them, seeking things best left untouched. Elara nodded, her resolve firming. Thank you for the warning, she said, tucking the supplies into her pack. As she turned to leave, a sudden commotion at the edge of the square caught her attention. A group of travelers had arrived, their cloaks dark, their horses lathered from a long ride. A chill ran down Elara's spine, not from fear, but from recognition. These were no ordinary travelers. Among them, she spotted the glint of a pendant similar to the Heartstone, its bearer cloaked heavily. Morkan's followers, she realized, her hand subconsciously resting on her dagger. Elara kept her distance, watching as the group dismounted and spoke with the local. Their leader, a tall figure with a commanding presence, surveyed the village with a predatory gaze. His eyes briefly met Elara's, and in that fleeting moment she felt the depth of his dark intent. Swiftly Elara slipped away, her heart pounding not just with fear, but with an urgent need to reach Cresthaven before them. She skirted the village, taking to the less trodden paths that wound through the hills. As she climbed a ridge, she paused, looking back at the peaceful village now cast under the shadow of the newcomers. They are close, too close. I must be faster, she thought, her breath catching as she considered her options. The direct route to Cresthaven would be fastest but most dangerous. An alternative, a path through the old mines known for its treacherous turns, could offer concealment at the risk of delay. Decision made, Elara set off towards the mines, her pace quickened by the adrenaline that coursed through her veins. The landscape changed once more, the rolling hills giving way to rocky outcrops and the sparse vegetation of the mining district. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain, Elara approached the mine's entrance, a gaping maw in the earth's surface. She paused, her orb casting a pale light into the darkness ahead. Into the belly of the earth, then, she murmured, her voice resolute yet tinged with apprehension. Stepping into the mine, the cool air wrapped around her like a cloak. Her orb flickered, its light struggling against the oppressive darkness. The path ahead was fraught with old dangers, unstable tunnels, deep chasms, and the remnants of forgotten toils. Yet Elara moved with a grace born of necessity, her senses attuned to every shift in the shadows, every whisper of the wind that managed to penetrate this deep. I am the key, she reminded herself, her fingers brushing the Heartstone. And I will not be undone by the darkness. With each step deeper into the mine, Elara left the light of day behind, venturing further into the shadows. Yet, with the Heartstone at her side and Erin's orb guiding her, she carried her own light into the darkness, a solitary figure against the vast, echoing silence of the underground. The echo of Elara's footsteps reverberated through the labyrinthine tunnels of the mine, each step a soft thud against the stone. The orb's light flickered with her movements, casting eerie shadows that danced along the jagged walls. The deeper she ventured, the more the oppressive weight of the earth above seemed to press down upon her, a constant reminder of the miles of rock that separated her from the open sky. The Heartstone pulsed against her chest, its rhythm synchronizing with the thud of her heart, an unspoken reassurance that she was not alone in this subterranean world. Elara's thoughts wandered back to the Heartstone's origins, the visions of ancient battles and powers so vast they could shape the very fabric of reality. Am I ready to wield such power? Can I control it, or will it control me? She questioned inwardly, her resolve battling the creeping doubts that the shadowy confines of the mine seemed to whisper. As she rounded a bend, the narrow tunnel opened into a large cavern. The orb illuminated crystal formations that jutted from the walls, their surfaces sparkling like stars in the night sky. The beauty of the scene was stark against the darkness of her journey, and for a moment, Elara allowed herself to marvel at the wonders of the underground. Her respite was short-lived. A rumble echoed through the cavern, the sound building until it was a roar that filled the air. From the shadows at the far end of the cavern, figures emerged, shadowy silhouettes that solidified into the forms of armored warriors. Their armor was not metal but seemed composed of the same dark stone that surrounded her, as if the mine itself had risen to defend its secrets. Elara drew her dagger, the blade a sliver of silver light in the orb's glow. She knew these were no ordinary foes but constructs of magic, bound to the will of whoever sought the Heartstone. "I am not just a key, I am also the shield," she affirmed, stepping forward with a confidence that belied her racing pulse. The first of the stone warriors charged, its movements surprisingly swift for its bulk. Elara dodged, the air from its passing chilling against her skin. She countered with a thrust of her dagger, the blade striking stone with a spark but little effect. "I need another way," she realized, her mind racing as she scanned the cavern for anything that might aid her. Her gaze landed on the crystal formations. With a swift decision, she darted towards the nearest cluster, dodging another charge from her pursuers. Sheathing her dagger, Elara grabbed a crystal shard, its edges sharp and firm. With all her might, she swung the shard at the next attacking warrior, striking it at a joint in its armor. The crystal pierced the stone, cracking it, and the construct stumbled, its form beginning to crumble. Emboldened, Elara used her makeshift weapon to fend off the attackers, moving with a dancer's grace around the cavern. One by one, the stone warriors fell, breaking apart into rubble at her feet. As the last of them collapsed, the cavern fell silent, save for the sound of her heavy breathing. Elara stood amidst the wreckage of her foes, the crystal shard still clutched in her hand. She looked around the cavern, its crystals now dimmed without the orb's focus. "This power, it's a part of me," she whispered, feeling the truth of it deep within her bones. But the battle had taken its toll. Elara felt the weariness creeping into her limbs, her energy sapped by the constant vigilance and the physical exertion of the fight. She knew she needed to rest, to gather her strength for the journey ahead. Finding a small alcove, she settled against the cool rock, the orb floating gently above her, its light dim but steady. As she closed her eyes, the visions returned, not visions of battle this time, but of paths untraveled, roads winding through darkness and light. Somewhere along those paths lay Cresthaven, and beyond it, answers. Elara drifted into a fitful sleep, her last conscious thought a vow to continue, to fight, to uncover the truth of the Heartstone and her destiny. Elara awoke to the soft hum of the orb as it floated near the alcove ceiling, its light now a gentle glow that eased the darkness of the underground. Her body felt heavy, each limb weighed down by the remnants of the previous day's battles. Yet, there was a newfound clarity in her mind, a sharp focus that cut through the fatigue like a blade through silk. She rose stiffly, her joints protesting, and took stock of her surroundings once more. The cavern, with its towering crystal formations and the debris of shattered stone warriors, looked less like a battlefield in the calm light of the orb and more like a strange, silent sanctuary. The air, once thick with dust and the echo of combat, now lay still, filled only with the quiet dripping of water from stalactites. "Is this what victory feels like?" Elara pondered aloud, her voice a whisper against the vastness of the cave. She felt the Heartstone against her chest, its pulse now a soft thrum in sync with her heartbeat. "Or is this merely the calm before the storm?" Gathering her belongings, Elara prepared to continue her journey. She tested her body's limits gently, stretching and moving in the small space, her muscles gradually warming to the activity. The crystal shard, now a proven weapon, was carefully wrapped in a piece of cloth and tucked into her belt, a reminder of the adaptability she had learned. With a deep breath, she called the orb to her side, and it obeyed, its light brightening as if in response to her resolve. "Lead the way," she said, her voice firm, as she stepped from the alcove into the broader cavern. The path onward was less daunting in the light of day, even if that day was only illuminated by Aaron's orb. The tunnels of the mine seemed to unwind before her, an intricate maze that she navigated with cautious steps. Her senses, sharpened by the trials she had faced, picked up every small noise: the distant fall of water, the subtle shift of rocks, the occasional scurry of unseen creatures. As she walked, Alara's mind wandered to the tales her father used to tell her of the world above, of the heroes who shaped history, not with the power they wielded but with the choices they made. Am I making the right choices? She wondered, the weight of her own decisions pressing upon her as heavily as the earth above. After what felt like hours of walking, a faint light began to permeate the tunnel ahead. Not the artificial glow of her orb, but the warm, golden light of the sun. Alara quickened her pace, drawn irresistibly towards the promise of open air. The tunnel narrowed, then opened abruptly onto a steep hillside, the mine's exit concealed by overgrown brush. The world outside was breathtakingly vibrant. The mine had brought her to the edge of a lush forest, its trees swaying gently in a soft breeze, their leaves filtering sunlight into dancing patterns on the ground. Birds sang in the canopy, their melodies a stark contrast to the silence of the stone below. Alara stepped out into the sunlight, her every sense alive with the beauty of the natural world. She turned to look back at the mine, its entrance now just a dark slit in the hillside. I have emerged from darkness, she thought, a smile touching her lips. But the journey isn't over yet. With the heartstone safe against her chest and the orb floating faithfully by her side, Alara set her sights on the path that wound through the forest. Cresthaven was still some distance away, but she felt prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. With each step, her resolve deepened, fueled not just by the desire to understand the Heartstone's power, but by the need to protect it from those who would use it for darkness. As she moved through the forest, the echoes of her battle in the mine became a distant memory, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Alara was alone, but she was not lonely. The journey had taught her that much. With the Heartstone's pulse a constant comfort, and the orb's light a guide, she walked forward, a solitary figure on a path woven with light and shadow, her destiny hers to shape. Emerging from the lush embrace of the forest, Alara found herself at the crest of a hill that offered a sweeping view of the valley below, where Cresthaven lay like a jewel set between two winding rivers. The town was bustling from this distance, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of the woods and the oppressive silence of the mines. The sun, now high in the sky, bathed everything in a warm, golden light, intensifying the colors of the autumn leaves that blanketed the landscape. Alara paused, taking a deep breath of the crisp air. So near, she murmured, her eyes scanning the landscape that stretched before her. The final leg of her journey was upon her, and with it, a surge of anticipation mingled with unease. She descended the hill, her steps sure and swift, the orb's light dimming as the sunlight grew stronger. As she approached the outskirts of Cresthaven, the reality of her quest settled in. I am here to seek answers, she reminded herself. To learn about the Heartstone and to prepare for whatever lies ahead. The town's outer markets were lively, filled with traders and townsfolk bartering over goods. The air was thick with the smells of roasting meats and fresh bread, a reminder of life's simpler pleasures that Alara had not realized she had missed. She mingled with the crowd, her appearance drawing curious glances. Not many travelers wore such a distinct, glowing orb or carried the air of the wilds as she did. Her first stop was the town's library, a venerable stone building adorned with ivy and old magic. The librarian, an elderly man with spectacles perched on his nose, greeted her with a nod. May I help you, miss? I seek the Book of Eldrin, Alara stated, her voice carrying the weight of her journey. I was told it contains knowledge of ancient powers and artifacts. The librarian studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. Follow me, he said, leading her through rows of dusty shelves filled with tomes that whispered tales of long ago. He stopped before a large, locked cabinet and produced a key from his robe. With a click, the door swung open, revealing several ancient manuscripts, their covers worn and their pages yellowed by time. This is the Book of Eldrin, he announced, pulling out a thick volume bound in leather. He laid it gently on a reading table, its pages filled with arcane symbols and illustrations that seemed to dance in the flickering light of the library's candles. Elara pored over the book, her fingers tracing the lines written in an elegant script. The pages revealed the lore of the Heartstone, its creation by ancient mages to balance the forces of magic, its use in battles that shaped empires, and its eventual loss to the sands of time. So much power, and so much responsibility, she whispered, her heart resonant with the stories of those who had wielded the stone before her. Hours passed as Elara absorbed the knowledge, the librarian occasionally passing by to offer a word of wisdom, or a pointer to another book that might aid her understanding. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows into the library, Elara knew that her journey was far from over. It is not just about understanding the power I hold, she realized, closing the Book of Eldrin with a soft thud. It's about understanding how to use it wisely. Thanking the librarian, Elara stepped back into the streets of Cresthaven, the weight of the book's revelations heavy on her shoulders. She knew that Morkan's followers were still out there, possibly drawing closer with each passing hour. But she also knew she was no longer the untested girl who had fled Everspring. She was a guardian, a keeper of a power meant to protect and balance, not to dominate and destroy. As the last light of day faded, Elara looked up at the stars beginning to twinkle in the night sky. Her path was clear, her resolve unshakable. She would return to Everspring, not just as its daughter but as its protector, ready to face whatever challenges awaited with the strength of the Heartstone and the knowledge of the ancients guiding her. "Let them come," she said to the night, her voice a soft echo in the cool air. "I am ready." With the orb lighting her path, Elara began her journey back home, each step a testament to the lessons learned and the trials overcome, her spirit as steadfast as the stone she bore. Thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Really helps a lot. If you don't, well, I'll still love you. Thanks for stopping by.